The feeling is unmistakable. It is a quiet, persistent weight in the back of your mind every time you drive through a neighborhood you once thought you could afford. You look at the houses, the ones with the porches and the yards, and you realize that the distance between you and that front door isn't just measured in miles or dollars anymore. It is measured in a whole new set of rules that you were never invited to write. Does it feel like the American dream is receding into the horizon, moving faster away from you the harder you run toward it? Does it feel like the housing market has become a game where the goalposts aren't just moving, but are being completely dismantled and sold off as scrap metal? You aren't imagining it. You are witnessing a silent theft. A masterstroke of financial engineering is taking place right in front of your eyes, and if you don't understand the play, you will find yourself locked out of your own future. Today, we are deconstructing the final frontier of the housing crisis, the moment where your future home was transformed into a digital asset on a billionaire's spreadsheet. This is the brutal truth behind the fractional illusion and the high-tech coup that is turning the concept of a home into a ticker symbol. As of March 1st, 2026, we have reached what can only be described as terminal financialization. For decades, the housing market was a slow-moving, local, and deeply human endeavor. It was about neighborhoods, schools, and families building long-term equity. But that era is officially dead. According to deep dive financial analysis and investigations from the ground in Seattle and Silicon Valley, the housing market has transitioned into the gamification of shelter. While the homeownership rate for the 25 to 44-year-old demographic continues to stagnate or fall, a new breed of platform has emerged to fill the void left by your shattered dreams. Companies like Arrived Homes have stepped into the vacuum, not to build more houses or make them cheaper, but to fundamentally alter what it means to own one. They have taken the desperation of a generation and turned it into a product. They've realized that if you can't afford the whole cake, they can sell you the crumbs and call it a banquet. This isn't just another startup story. Arrived Homes is the tip of a very large, very heavy iceberg, and the people holding the tiller are the same names that have already disrupted every other aspect of your life. This is the Bezos blueprint for the American suburb. Behind this platform is a who's who of the technocratic elite. Jeff Bezos, the man who turned retail into an algorithm, Marc Benioff, the architect of corporate cloud dominance, and Dara Khosrowshahi, the man who commodified the gig economy. Why are the world's most powerful tech billionaires suddenly interested in the 3-bedroom house down the street from you? It's not because they want to help you build wealth. It's because they've identified the house as the final piece of the operating system of human existence that they don't yet control. They have successfully transitioned the American home from a physical shelter into a liquid digital asset. They call it democratization, but we need to ask the brutal question: in a world where a billionaire owns the platform, the data, and the land, what exactly is the role of the democratized investor? Hint, it isn't to be an owner, it is to be a source of liquidity. Let's pull the curtain back on how the fractional ownership system actually functions in 2026. The pitch is designed to be irresistible to the squeezed middle class. They tell you that for a mere $100, you can stop being a victim of the market and start being a player. Buy shares in a rental home, they say. Let us handle the dirty work, the acquisitions, the property management, the tenants, while you sit back and collect quarterly dividends. On the surface, it looks like a miracle of financial inclusion. It looks like empowerment. But if you look closer, you realize that you are participating in a high-stakes game where the house always wins. Literally, when you invest $100 into a fraction of a house, you aren't buying property, you are buying a digital certificate in a limited liability company. You have no control over the asset. You don't decide when it's sold, who lives there, or how it's maintained. You are holding all the market risk, while the platform and its billionaire backers hold all the institutional power. It is the illusion of ownership without any of the sovereignty that comes with it. The discovery, the brutal truth that the mainstream media refuses to acknowledge, is that this democratization is actually a massive extraction project. The silent theft isn't just about the houses themselves, it's about the theft of your future bargaining power. Platforms like Arrived Homes, backed by the infinite capital of Jeff Bezos, are creating a new world order where housing is an extreme financialized asset. They aren't democratizing access for you, they are creating a massive decentralized buying machine that can outbid actual families in every single zip code. When nearly 1 million small investors pool their $100 shares, they create a wall of capital that keeps home prices artificially high. They are using your own savings to ensure that you can never afford to buy a house of your own. They are selling you a slice of a dream to make sure you never own the whole thing. The secret that the billionaires don't want you to know is that your impossibility is their profit margin. They thrive on the fact that you can't buy a home. If everyone could afford a house, the Arrived Homes model would collapse. Their entire business depends on a permanent class of micro-landlords who are so desperate for real estate exposure that they will settle for a digital dividend instead of a deed. This is the subversion of the American dream. You continue to work, you continue to save, but your home is now just a number on a spreadsheet, managed by an algorithm and owned by a conglomerate. The neighborhood as a place of stability and community has been deleted. In its place is a global financial product, where the real owner is a conglomerate and you are just a user with a minority stake in your own displacement. Think about the long-term consequence of this housing as a stock model. When every house in your neighborhood is owned by private equity and thousands of fractional investors, who is responsible for the community? Who cares if the grass is cut or if the schools are funded? The fractional investor only cares about the dividend. The platform only cares about the management fee. The neighborhood becomes a factory for capital, and the people living in the houses become the raw material. You are being offered a seat at the table, but you are the one on the menu. They want you to feel grateful for the access. They want you to think that a $100 share in a house in Ohio is the same thing as owning the roof over your head. But the truth is cold, and it is brutal. You are being sold the crumbs of a banquet that you were never invited to attend. The silent theft is complete when you stop fighting for property rights and start fighting for app-based dividends. It is time to deconstruct the narrative of democratization and see it for what it is, the final consolidation of the American suburb into a corporate portfolio. What happens to a society when the very concept of home is liquidated into the stock market? What happens to your wealth when the primary vehicle for equity is controlled by the same people who control your data and your deliveries? The Bezos blueprint is clear. Own the platform, own the infrastructure, and turn the citizens into permanent subscribers. This is the reality they don't want you to see. This is the play they don't want you to understand. But the maps are being drawn, the houses are being tokenized, and the silent theft is happening every time you click invest. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Is this democratization, or is it the ultimate betrayal of the middle class? It is time to wake up and see the game for what it is. The future is being sold off in fractions, and if we don't start deconstructing these narratives now, there won't be anything left to own. Stay skeptical, stay analytical, and never stop looking through the magnifying glass at the truths they try to hide in plain sight.